Hello and welcome. This video is going to show you how to paint simple natural objects using acrylic paint. And today we're going to be painting a pear. So you want to think about the shape of a pear first. It's spherical and it has a little bit of a pyramid. So I'm going to start by lightly sketching out the outline in pencil on my canvas board. So there's kind of that circular shape that I was talking about, and we're going to make that into a sphere eventually. And then it kind of comes not really to a pointy point, but a little bit of a tapered edge there. I also like to draw in my cast shadow, and I also like to put in the horizon line. And then it also helps me to kind of block in the shadows and where they're going to be on the pear. Notice the light is coming from the top and from the left. And so here's my palette. I have just about all my colors put out except for reds, because I don't really see them in this color scheme here. And I also have a little bit of matte medium on my palette. So first I'm going to mix up the colors for my background, and I'm using neutral colors to do that. So just kind of, mix some colors together, and I'm going to lay that in rather quickly. There's a little bit of water on my brush just to help it to spread around, so get that in there. Sometimes it helps to kind of press your brush down, and that will help you to spread the paint around if it's hiding in the bristles. Also, I do like to have a gradient going from light to dark relevant to the light source, so I'm kind of working in a little bit of a darker value as I move to the right, and a little bit of a light, it's kind of that warm yellow on the left. And the same thing goes for the surface. So it kind of is a lighter, more warm yellow towards the left, and then it's going to get to be a darker brown as we go off to the right. I'm just kind of making sure that blends. All right, and now I'm going to mix up my colors for my pear. So I'm going to get a couple different values laid down on the palette just to have them there to work with. So there's sort of that medium green that's the main color of the pear. And then I want to mix up sort of a lighter version of it with some yellow and some white in it. And then for the shadows, maybe more of a little brown and blue. Those work better as shading colors than black. So I'm kind of laying down that color, and while it's still wet, then I'll work in the shadow color. And just a side note, I know my pear is a little bit more of a lime green color than the actual reference pear. It's okay, it just kind of had to do with the colors that I was working with. I maybe could have toned it down or neutralized it with a little bit of a reddish brown to make the more accurate color. But we're still practicing the skill of shading and blending, so it still works. I want to try to make my strokes a little bit rounded because this is a spherical object. So I don't want them to be like a flat straight line. This is going to be the cast shadow here. I'll use that brown for that because it's a little bit of a darker version than my table color. Okay, then I'm going to wait about 10 minutes, let this dry, and come back to it. And then we're going to really push those values a little more, make it a little neater, do some detail work. Okay, so I'll actually add a little bit of blue in to really make a nice dark value and really crisp that up. And that's gonna go sort of more towards the back of the pear where it's really dark there. It's kind of almost that flat side that's really far away from the light source. And again, I'm kind of blending out that edge as I go along because the spherical objects, the shadows on them change gradually. So sometimes taking a little bit of your lighter color, even a little matte medium or water, and helping to blend out that edge is helpful. I mean, you don't want to lose the contrast, but you do still want to have the blending there. And what I do is I kind of almost make little back and forth strokes at this point. It kind of actually helps to give a little bit of a hint of a texture to it. So same thing, that shadow on the front part of the pear, the underneath part there. Just keep in mind the light source is always going to be darker towards the bottom and darker towards the right. And I can also go back in with a lighter yellow and kind of pop out those light values that I see as well. You may even notice a little bit of a reflected light. If you want to put that little reflection in, it kind of is bouncing up from the surface. And now I'm going to do a little bit of those sort of the bruises, the little modeling on the pear, so there's kind of that rusty brown that's a good color for that. You don't want to go over the whole thing, just a little bit of a hint here or there. You can use your finger a little bit, it's not against the rules. A little stem. And one of my favorite parts is to put those highlights on because it makes it look really, you know, shiny. And then I'll just do a little bit more with the cast shadow because the cast shadows are dark right up against the object and they kind of dissipate. All right, and this is my final product. I let it dry for a few more minutes and I touched it up a little bit more, just did a little more spots, a little bit more with the highlights. And another thing that I like to do too is I like to go in and just give it a little bit of an edge because you sort of lose the edge when you're working into the background. So just kind of touching it up. And, you know, fixing any little bits that got lost. So really it's kind of almost like working in 2 big stages and then 1 final stage. So that's that. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.